Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Tittle Tattle Tarot. It's Georgie. And on the table today, I have the Light Seers Tarot. And I am going to be looking at John Lennon. I'm not looking at his time with the Beatles or anything like that. I'm looking at his very early years. Years sort of between his birth and 15 years of age. So early childhood up to about 15. So I'm going to see what the tarot can tell me. I do have some specific questions. I was going to pull a Celtic cross, but I thought that I would get more direct and ask very specific questions about him and see what the tarot can tell me. So sometimes I think the tarot like you to be very direct in your questions. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's just jumble these all up. I'm quite enjoying doing readings this way, just picking from deep underneath the deck and seeing what comes up. So let's start off. I want to know about John Lennon, please, and using the beautiful Light Seers Tarot, gorgeous deck. So let's just see what the cards can tell me. I want to know about his early childhood. I'm going to go from about the age of, say, 5 to 8. So just that small span of childhood there. What was he like as a child from about the age of 5 to 8? Just for a view, get a little bit of a feel for his energy at that age. Okay, I think when he was a small child, and we're talking about, 5 years old, around about that age, I'm going to go straight to the High Priestess in the middle there. Still waters run deep. I think he had a lot of emotions that he couldn't express. I think that he was I don't get the feeling here these aren't really joyous cards that you would expect to get from a 5-year-old. They aren't playful cards. They are quite isolated cards, quite lonely cards. I think at this stage there was fighting around him and he didn't like it. He didn't like the fighting that was around him. So we've got this in reverse. And I think that dislike of the noise and the fighting gave us this situation here where his true feelings were kept into him. This is a strange card for a child, it's not child energy, the High Priestess, but it has that element, or it is the element of secrets, of feelings and emotions, of deep knowing. So I think that he knew more than he said. He saw more than people realized. And that never left him. It sort of informed his judgment of adults. And it's quite sort of a wise thing. It's looking at situations and understanding what it's all about. But it came from this fighting, which he wasn't part of. He wasn't part of this fighting. I think it would have been this way up if he'd been, in the mix with all of this. But at that age, no, he wasn't, but he didn't like it at all. But it sort of informed his view of what adults did. And I think that he held a lot of his emotions very close to him. And there you have the Nine of Swords. And I think, again, Nine of Swords, that's your Sleepless Nights card. So we've got, a greater arcana in the middle. And then, these two other cards either side. The Nine of Swords, as I say, this is a childhood with worries. Children, these shouldn't be children's cards. This energy shouldn't come up in, say, a 5-year-old's reading. Nine of Swords, sleepless nights, nightmares. So, you know, quite a volatile early years, you know, that very sort of tender, impressionable time, quite vulnerable, and hearing noises and hearing things that you know, child shouldn't really hear. So as we go on later in life, we're talking more sort of about, you know, after that, sort of from about 8 to 12. 8 to 12, what was he like, you know, later on in life? 8 till 12. 8 to 12. Okay. I think he was more settled. He was more settled. He let go of some of the hurt that he had in his earlier childhood. He let that go at that time, you know, was sort of leading up to about 12 years old. And he sort of settled. That's the way I see that. I see this one as a very unsettled card. You know, the past heartbreak, but I see he let that go and felt more settled, felt more balanced. He is an air sign, Libra, and I think that, you know, this is quite a sort of Libra energy. Was finding his feet, was finding the balance in life. That's what he was aiming for. And I think Six of Cups, probably of his childhood, that was probably the most, I would say, the most stable time that he had, from around about 9 to 12. I think that, you know, he hadn't become a real rebel. He'd got over what had been quite a difficult early childhood, and now he was more settled. If you know anything about John Lennon, please let me know, you know, what this means to you. I think that if he looked back on his childhood, this sort of era here, from about 9 to 12, he would say that was more of the not golden time, but yes, it was looked at more fondly than very early childhood. So we'll have a look now at, you know, that 13 to 15 age group. What was going on at about 13 to 15? You know, puberty and, you know, probably changing schools and all that kind of thing. What happened then? 13 to 15. 10 of Wands. Okay, so got a burden there. Let's just see what else we've got. Okay, so it seems like the childhood is split into like three distinct levels here. The very disruptive early childhood, the fighting and the learning to keep secrets, and you know, having sleepless nights, nightmares as a small child, feeling you know, you had to keep your feelings very close to you, and not feeling very secure there. Then we're into the more stable parts, you know, finding the balance, looking back and thinking, oh, well, that middle part of my childhood, that 9 to 12, that was quite stable, and that was good. And then we go on sort of 13 to 15, probably change schools, growing up, going through puberty. And we have three cards here. 10 of Wands. You've got that feeling of burden. I think it's probably, you know, it's always a burden when you're into your early teens, trying to discover who you are, you know, just trying to find your identity. I think a lot of that can be a burden. Usually with the 10 of Wands, they're going uphill with all the wands on their back, you know, and they're punched over and they're going up. This one's coming downhill, which is interesting. But the wands are passion, and, you know, your passion, holding it on his back. It's almost as though, you know, he has these dreams, but he's being thwarted in a way. It's like he knows what he wants, but trying to get it is seeming very hard for him. But as the Ten of Wands, as that is, you don't give up. You plod on, and you have this dream of what you want to go. She's going somewhere. I don't know where she's going, but one foot in front of the other. And that's basically the Ten of Wands, one foot in front of the other. You keep doing, you keep practicing, you keep on, because you know that you will get there. With the Ten of Wands, you will get there. You're not in reverse. You haven't let your dream go. You've still got it. But I think it was quite hard for him. Quite hard for him to, hold on to this, what he wanted to be. And there you are, Eight of Swords. That is sort of a mental anguish card. This is kind of not knowing. And let's face it, when we were all teenagers, 13, 14, 15, it can be a very, very unsettling time. You're no longer a child. You're coming into an adult sphere, but you're not an adult. And I think he found this very hard. He didn't know who he was. That comes through here. Didn't know who he was. He couldn't see. He couldn't see who he was. He felt constricted. I get that from this. He felt like he couldn't be who he wanted to be, but he didn't know who he wanted to be. Very sort of lost cards. And strength, I see this as false strength. He dealt with it by being stronger than he actually was, appearing stronger than he was. So this is like the facade. This is like the don't mess with me. This is the calm strength. I wouldn't hit you for the world, but I'm not to be messed with. But underneath there was all this turmoil, not knowing where he was, and knowing that he had this passion, probably the music that he wanted to do, but not quite seeing how he was going to get there at that stage. Had all these dreams, but it seemed like a real, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Just keep going, one foot in front of the other, but felt probably bound in by his surroundings, by the people that were caring for him or what have you. But that false strength. So how important were women in his life? I know that his mother didn't raise him. I know it was an aunt, but apart from that, I don't really know very much. But how important were women in his life? Did he have good relationships with women? So I'm going to move everything up a little bit. His relationships with women. Page of Cups, that's an emotional card. I think he kind of, pigs might fly. I think he kind of idolized certain women. Yeah, I think that's very much, he loved women. I think that he was more comfortable around women than he was around men. Had a very tender heart with the women that were in his life. I'm not talking about sexual relationships. I'm talking about, female members of family that looked after him, that were around him. And I think he was more comfortable in female energy than male energy as a child, as at this period that we're looking at. So the importance of women around him. The importance of women around him. And let's have one more. Yeah. I think that the importance of women, he was the odd child out. He was quite insular. He was not a really outgoing, although he put on this strength and put on this act. I think that he was always the one that, although he had friends, he was the odd one out, very much so. He was the one who was, the strange boy in a way. And I think maybe not so much his friends looked on him like that, but maybe the friends' families looked on him as that boy's odd. That kind of vibe with it. And I think that, the women that were in his family, that's where the heart is, that's where the love is, the women that raised him. And I think that they saw that he was quite sort of in the air, quite sort of lived in his head. Although this is a cups card, it's got that sort of living in your head energy, sort of daydreamer energy. And they understood that, and he knew that they understood that. And there you have the Queen of Pentacles, the ultimate motherly earth sign. He needed this and he got it. He had stability from female energy around him, so that that sort of tells me that the female energy shored up this odd child. And I think without that female energy, he really would have gone off the rails. So that was very important to him. Let's just move those up a little bit. How did he consider himself? How did he consider himself? I'm not even really going into music here because this is real sort of personality. How did he consider himself? I'm just coming here so you can see what I'm doing. How did John Lennon consider himself? Ace of Wands in reverse. Let's see what else we've got. Okay. Strange set of cards for how he considered himself. Ace of Wands. That's your passion card, your journey, your passion, your what you want to do with your life. It's work, it's a project, it's something new that you birth in a way. You bring forward this I must do this, I have to do this. And we've got it in reverse. I think he did doubt himself. He knew what he wanted, but I think that there was that doubt that he never voiced. I think that he was a lot of show, he was a lot of bravado, a lot of strength, but I think there was this doubt. And he seems like such an outgoing personality, but I wonder whether he did doubt what he could do. He would never ever have shown that, and he would have had this real bravado, this sort of this real strong energy. But I think, going back to his childhood and the things that we've seen there, I think that he was not as confident as he appeared to be. And you've got the Fool in reverse here, and that these two cards tell me that definitely, that he knew that there was a future there, but he didn't. I think that he thought that it wasn't going to happen for him. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but it's just like he wanted it so much, but I think that he felt that he wasn't good enough, or where he came from, would prevent him having what he wanted. But then we've got the Lovers here, which is that union of people. I think once he started to collaborate with other people, take his dreams to other people, then it started to happen. I think he was stronger with other people than he was on his own. I think when he was on his own, I think there were certain demons around him, and I don't think that creative spark on his own really really came to fruition, if you like, and it didn't, he couldn't have been like a solo act, if you like. That's the way it is. A solo act going on his own way. If he'd been like an Elvis or solo, it would have been this way up, I think, and then he would have gone off and it would have been a whole different thing. But he knew that he needed others around him, I believe. And so it wasn't until, other people started joining his collaborative process, and you got this, not lovers, not, a sexual love, but, a union of a group coming together. And I'm not even talking about Beatles, I'm talking way before that. It was when he worked with other energies that started happening. So I'm going to put all these cards together. I'm going to go right to the heart of the situation with John Lennon. So I'm not going to shuffle them. I'm just going to go right into the middle and just see what we've got as the heart of the situation. Temperance in reverse. Interesting. What's this one? And the Sun. Yeah. The Sun. Let's go to this one first of all. The Sun. It worked out for him. Of course, it worked out for him. He was in the spotlight. He bathed in the glory of people's admiration. His career, Greater Arcana, 2 Greater Arcanas here. It grew and it flourished, and it did all the things that the Sun does. The Sun gives things life, and his career took off after this union, after this meeting like-minded people. But temperance, this, even at like 15, this was there. Temperance, that's your balance, your the figure here with the wings. It's quite angelic. You're the healing, you're the balm, you're the person that soothes the situation. John Lennon was never that. He was fiery, and he was the disruptive. He was the excessive. He was one who probably indulged too much, even at that age. Indulged in whatever, whether it was fighting or bad behavior or whatever. He was always a bad boy. But I think that came down to this, hiding a lot of insecurity. And so this was the act of being the bad boy. But yeah, it worked. Obviously it worked. And, he got the sun coming down onto him, and that time in the spotlight that lasted, well, until his death. So, early childhood, we said, and we were talking up to about the age of 5, people fighting around him holding his feelings to his chest as a little boy, not voicing how he felt. Well, you don't when you're 5, do you? You just accept it. But you see how adults are, the fighting, seeing how adults are. Sleepless nights, probably nightmares, very unsettled. And then you get to the most secure part of his life, which was around about 8 to 12, 9 till 12, something like that. He let go of what had happened in his early childhood, and he became a more balanced soul, a more balanced little boy. And if he looked back through his childhood, he would have said that those years between 9 and 12, that's the 6 of Cups, that's your nostalgia. So that would be the time of his childhood where he would say, that was my stability there. 2 of Pentacles, that sort of stability card. And he'd let go of what had happened to him in early childhood, probably even forgotten about it. And then we come on to the later, sort of up to about 15, and these insecurities start coming in, going through puberty, changing schools, I would imagine. 10 of Wands, it's a burden. You know what you want to do, but you're not sure how to do it, and you feel blindfolded and sort of tied because you can't quite work out how you want to achieve your passion, what you want to do. And that insecurity led him to self-doubt. So he put on this strong sort of persona, not I'm going to hit you, because I don't think he ever would have done that, but that idea that maybe I would, don't mess with me kind of persona. And then I asked about the women. Who were the important women in his life? Did women, was it important to him? Some boys grow up and, they're more self-reliant, not really close to female influence, but this boy was. Page of Cups, he had this very dreamy quality. He was never quite feet on the ground. And I think that certain women in his life understood that. And, oh, it's John. And they just knew what he was like. And he appreciated the fact that they got him. They understood his emotions. Because he was, the Five of Pentacles, he was the boy that was not really understood by a lot of people. He had friends, but I think those friends, their parents would say, don't mix with that boy, that boy's trouble. And I think that's the persona that, followed him around, rightly or wrongly, probably rightly. But that's sandwiched again by this home life, female energy, the Queen of Pentacles, the woman who's very down to earth, loving, practical queen, not overly gushing, but that sort of, whatever you need, your needs are met. You're always nice hot food for you, warm clothes, tender care. So yes, he very much appreciated the women in his life. And then we asked how he considered himself. And we got surprising cards here, his talents, how he considered himself. And it wasn't as I'm brilliant as you think. I think a lot of people that have that kind of persona of I'm amazing, I could do it all, actually aren't that confident underneath. And I think that comes from, the early part of his childhood. If it had been this way up, I would have said to you, oh, he'd go off and he'd be a solo act. This is solo act material. Definitely go off on stage on your own and you create a career like Elvis or someone like that. We didn't have that. To me, it was somebody who didn't have the real belief, the real confidence until he worked with other people. And then once this group came together, not the Beatles, before that, or once creative energies came together, then he blossomed. Then. But, we went right to the heart of the situation. He was always this disruptive energy, always. He was always the devil. He was one that would argue. If there was an argument in, a collaboration, it was him at the center of it. He just had that. If anybody is going to put the foot wrong, it's him. Yeah. And then the Sun, but, it all worked. It all worked out tremendously, didn't it? Until his death at age 44, he had this sun on him, and he was in the spotlight, and he was on stage, and look how that figure's illuminated performing. So, and I think this card's interesting, the lovers, the collaborative work. If you think about his early years, I think he was with the Quarrymen, maybe before the Beatles. You have to remind me and tell me, but that was a collaboration. Then the Beatles, then he was with Yoko Ono. So I think this is very true. He came alive and did his very best work when he had at least one other person to create with. He wasn't, even when he did supposedly solo stuff later in his life, there was always this other influence there. So there you go. That's what the Light Seers Tarot tell me about John Lennon. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that. I'm not a John Lennon fan. Don't dislike him at all, but he's not someone that I was really into at all. Wasn't into the Beatles at all. not my sort of music. Certainly appreciate the Beatles, certainly, appreciate it all, but I don't know a huge amount about this man. I'd love you to fill in the blanks. You're so good at doing that for me. You message me, you say, well, did you know this, that, and the other? And then I look back on my reading, I think, my God, now that all makes sense. So if you've got stuff to tell me about John Lennon that I'm sure I wouldn't know, then please do, because that helps me look back at this and think, oh, now I understand what the tarot was saying, things that I've missed. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Best regards, Georgie.